Shawn, I did not want to make this video.
I know you didn't. There's a reason why we're doing it.
So yeah, that's absolutely right. We are doing it because it is going to be good for people to hear. It's going to be good for people to listen to. I think it's going to be very relatable for a lot of people, especially a lot of patients at the clinic, a lot of people that you talk to in a coaching aspect. So for everybody watching, this is Shawn. I will allow him to introduce himself and talk a little bit about his background. He also is involved here with Aspire Rejuvenation. He happens to take some of our wonderful products and supplements. And, I wanted him here to kind of interview me because we got in a conversation and he said, why aren't you putting this on a video to help people? It's exactly how the conversation went on the phone.
So my background is I've been in the health and wellness industry for over 25 years, started off as a massage therapist, transitioned to a personal trainer, got involved in coaching, saw some huge improvements with my clients. And the thing that's interesting about exercise and being physical is mind. What your mind believes it can do and can't do. And sometimes it's a good thing and sometimes it's a bad thing. From coaching, it just opened up all kinds of cool things that I got to work with, and then became a certified hypnotherapist, which took it to a whole another level. And the reason I wanted to come on and Tomo and I have this conversation, I went through what he's going through over 11 or 12 years ago now. And the reason I did this, it's about 17, 18 years ago, I had testicular cancer. They told me I would never be able to have children naturally. I was on testosterone because my level was 118. That was through a urologist. Now, the reason I bring that up is I was still low normal, and my insurance dropped the coverage because they said I was low normal. At 118, I was a walking zombie. So I get on testosterone, and I'm going to be honest with people here. I found they wanted to charge me over $1,500 without insurance. So back then I'm like, hey, I had some friends in the gym industry, so I got some black market stuff. And listen, was not taking that to get into become a bodybuilder. I needed it to raise my levels. So we decided once my wife and I got married, we're going to try. And I came off of the testosterone, and people think, oh, it's sexually stimulating drug. Yes, that's one thing. But it's also not falling asleep in the middle of the day. It's also not wanting to get up. It's also not wanting to be around people. It's also having these mood swings that were up and down. And back then, they weren't doing a ton of hormone replacement therapy. It was steroids and bad stuff. And the thing that I had to find out is create my own protocol. And I went on Adderall because I couldn't drink that much coffee all day. I needed something. And the thing that the doctor told me after we found out that my wife was pregnant, I'm like, okay, I can go back on. He's like, no. You got to wait 12 to 15 more weeks to make sure there's no miscarriage. I'm like, he goes, because otherwise you're going to have to go through this all again. So, I noticed you got married, and I'm like, okay, what's going on with you? And you're like, what do you mean? I'm like, I know something's up because I was there. And we get into this conversation, and what's the reason is what you're doing right now? Is it the same exact reason or different?
Yeah. So wife and I are trying to have a baby. I've been on testosterone therapy for several years. I have my perfect optimal level where there's nothing adversely healthy for me. I have absolutely no side effects, and I am completely optimal. I feel like $1 million. I feel like a superhero, pretty much 24 hours a day. So I know that exogenous testosterone obviously is going to lower the sperm count, going to, kill the fertility a little bit, even with the HCG that I'm taking. The HCG just keeping just a minimal amount of activity, the testicular function, which you and I both know. And so I'm like, okay, so let's maximize the chances and let's get off testosterone. Let's do a HPTA restart protocol. So
Can you go into that a little bit more in detail?
Yeah. So basically, we have a protocol that includes HCG, clomiphene, anastrozole at a very small amount, and also tamoxifen. So
what do those each individual drugs do?
So they're all basically, so the tamoxifen and the anastrozole really are for estrogen control.
Okay.
The clomiphene and the HCG are for testicular stimulation, stimulating FSH, LH, and basically getting your testicular function back where it needs to be.
So what's the issue with estrogen and trying to have a
Well,
baby?
so when you're restarting your protocol like that, when you drop your testosterone and you're doing this restart protocol, what happens is HCG and clomiphene both have a tendency to kind of raise estrogens as much as they are, sometimes raising testosterone or raising testicular function. So you want to keep those estrogens at bay. You don't want to be having a guy skyrocketing estrogen. They're going to feel like garbage. They're going to get side effects. They're going to get, there's the potential for gynecomastia and things like that when you're doing
So
that.
now I understand what happened to me because no one went into any of this.
Sure,
It's
this is
come off
not
of this, and I created my own protocol. Like I asked the doctor, he gave me I call it Clomid, but you're given the scientific. So I took that, but then I went and did a bunch of natural stuff that I knew about because there wasn't a lot of fertility work being done back then like that. So
yeah.
how's all that working right now?
Yeah, so I already went through that. I did that basically starting the second week after my last shot. So I took my last shot of testosterone. This is now going almost a little over 3 months ago, basically right after my wedding, which was early December. I stopped the testosterone and I started this HPTA restart protocol about 2 weeks after. So I did that. It's about a month long. I actually did it for about 6 weeks. I extended my program. Again, a little bit of experimentation on my part. I like to do that from time to time. Worked very well. Testicular functions, back to where it is. And, it's good. It's a good feeling to be off of everything. But man, does it really take you back to where you were before TRT and why you kind of started it.
So like, then the reason I'm asking these questions is because I'm all about like how our mental function really works. And a lot of people don't realize that hormones aren't just affecting you in a physical way by building muscle or building fat. They have a huge impact on the way we think, depression, anxiety, all different types of things. When you first started on this, what was the first thing you started to notice about feeling off a little bit?
Yeah, so the mental clarity thing is the first part. So mental clarity, I've always kind of touted that as one of the main benefits of optimizing hormones. Your brain just functions better. It's like a car. It's like an engine in a car. Without oil, that engine's not going to run very long, if at all. Men and testosterone, they got to go hand in hand. You need to have one to function. So, and again, that's not just testosterone, but that's the main hormone in men. Of course, we need to have a little bit of estradiol and so on. But mental clarity was number one. Energy, just really just the urge to, do things, to live, to really be, God, I don't even know what to push, kind of like to push for life. All that kind
You
of stuff
become
just kind of
mediocre in a
goes.
way, right? Just like,
Yeah, you just kind of feel lazy, mediocre.
right.
You don't really want to work hard. You don't really want to do anything extra. It turns into it's a spiral effect. And men deal with what I have been dealing with for 2 months, which I expected. I knew this was going to happen.
Right.
But men have been dealing with this from age, let's say 30, and I have guys coming to us that are 50, and they've been dealing with it for 20 years thinking it's normal.
And because it came down at a slower rate than what's happening to you, they don't know and understand that that is not normal.
Yeah, well, they think it's a part of the aging process, which, yes, it kind of is, but it's something that we can stave off. And of course, we can go into the historical data of testosterone declining in men throughout the last, 50 years and probably much further back before there was even testing. There's speculation that the average testosterone level back in the days when like Rome was in power,
Right.
they said that testosterone levels were probably more likely around 2,500.
And the interesting thing is, people aren't really understanding how plastics and certain foods and certain chemicals are impacting the hormone levels in men and women. That's what people have to understand. What we're talking about in your case is to create fertility, to have a child. But there's also issues with women having low testosterone too, that a lot of people aren't really aware of, that definitely your clinic addresses through the blood work and talking to people to understand that, hey, the reason maybe why you're feeling tired or in a depressive, I say depressive state because I work with a group called Mission 22, and it's preventing 22 average deaths a day in the United States of suicide by veterans.
Mm-hmm.
When they were put on a protocol of gut health and hormones, their depression went away. Their PTS went away. Why? Because the stress that people are under on a daily basis with high cortisol levels does affect testosterone. How does that actually happen over a period of time where cortisol levels get off? People are feeling anxiety and depression. Like, is that, like you're saying, a cascading effect, or just a bunch of different things happening at the same time?
Yeah, so I mean, I think it's a cascading effect, but it definitely is something that will hit you kind of out of nowhere, and people don't really realize it. When your hormone levels are really on the decline, you can have a lot of distractions. When I'm busy at work, I don't notice how tired I am. I don't notice how, kind of depleted I feel. I don't notice, the depressive state like you're talking. And, like you said, depressive state does not necessarily mean depression. It just means kind of like not that happy mood, not that optimal mood that you really could be.
Right.
But yeah, the cascading effect, it gets worse and worse. It doesn't get better. The longer that you're on that decline, or the longer that you keep feeling the same thing without any, kind of let up, it wears you out. It wears you out, and you start to think there's something severely wrong.
Right. And that's where it can become a mental issue that really is just a hormone imbalance,
Mm-hmm.
which is very interesting to even bring that up, because they'll put people on medication for slight depression. They'll put people on all different types of things. And we know, and we've seen, and I've worked with people that when they're on antidepressants, you can't come off of those fast. You have to, and when you start introducing other things, people are always so sensitive that they're so fearful of feeling bad that they're okay with feeling okay, not feeling great. And they don't want a chance that they're going to screw everything up, because they're fear-based living. And like, again, not putting down my doctor, but the insurance company was calling the shots on my hormone levels, not the doctor.
Yep.
He's like, I can still prescribe it to you, but it's $1,500. And I'm like, why can they call that shot? And he goes, because it's a parameter. And back then they were looking at any type of testosterone as a steroid, which was illegal. And I'm going, why is something that makes people feel better illegal? And the reality of it is, and you and I know this, anything that is abused is going to cause bad reactions.
Of course. And
your protocol, how is that different than some guy in a gym or wherever getting a bottle of something and sticking a needle and working out hard? Like, how is yours healthy and making people feel better? Like, once your wife becomes pregnant, how will you transition back on?
Yeah, so we're more health centric and we're more symptom centric. So, we're not getting people coming in that already have an optimal testosterone. Most of the people that start abusing steroids start abusing at a young age. Right. I'm not going to say all of them, but a lot of them, for a bodybuilding, type of reason. But when you're looking at, the average man, let's say 40 years old, okay, so 40-year-old male who has a little bit of lower testosterone, they're coming in with a myriad of symptoms. They have that depressive state. They have no energy. They have a low sex drive. They maybe have some erectile dysfunction. They have all of these symptoms that will clearly tell us that they have a testosterone deficiency. I mean, half the time people can come in and they'll tell me all these things that are going on. And without even, I'm like, well, you have low testosterone. They're like, well, how do you know that? You haven't checked my labs. I'm like, because you literally gave me every sign of low testosterone. It's just kind of how it goes.
Exactly.
It's not rocket science, but to them, they've been going to doctors for years sometimes, and they've been telling these doctors that they have these symptoms, and their doctors are not treating them for testosterone. They're not treating them for low T because maybe they don't want to deal with insurance companies. Maybe they don't even know how to treat for low T. So we're really looking at it from a health standpoint. We want to get people to an optimal level, which, if you look at lab tests, they have that range. I think it's between 200 or 250 or 300, and I think 850 or 900. There's that range right there. That range basically, there's people that will argue and say that that is the average testosterone levels for men, and basically that's leaving out the top 20 and the bottom 20%.
Okay.
I've spoken to many doctors. I have been taught and trained by Dr. Neil Rouzier, who runs WorldLink Medical, one of the top hormone experts in the world, and Dr. Terry Hertog, who's the president of the Anti-Aging Society, International Anti-Aging Society, and teaches for A4M. And I studied under him in Dubai. Both of those guys told me that scale is absolute nonsense. They basically pluck these numbers out of the air and it means nothing.
You mean like the food pyramid?
Exactly like the food pyramid, exactly like most health things that you see, unfortunately, especially in the United States. But these numbers don't mean anything. When I was in my early 20s, I had testosterone levels ranging between 13 and 1500. Any doctor that would see that would say, he's taking exogenous testosterone, he's taking steroids. But that was my natural level. I never touched a drug in my life.
Right. It's interesting how we're talking about the physical effects, but the overall, it's so interesting when, like, I do the coaching and the hypnosis, and yeah, temporarily they'll get a quick fix. But what I found is there are a few guys that I've sent to you that I'm like, listen, there is no way you're going to become the best of who you want to be without at least knowing where you're at. And that's the baseline.
Mm-hmm.
So once they start feeling better, it's so much easier to become more productive and want to do things which you're battling with right now, because there's a reason you're doing it. And it's a great reason to do it. And that's the difference, is you're in a controlled environment, knowing exactly why you're doing it, where, like we said earlier, there are so many guys who have no concept and accept the dad bod. Let's talk about this dad bod thing, because you may be becoming a dad, but hopefully you're not going to be a dad bod. So what is the cause of the dad bod?
So the dad bod is the flabby midsection with the belly, the lack of muscle mass. Maybe you start seeing those dad bod guys starting to lose their hair a little bit. They start to have
the. Man, what are you trying to say?
Listen, that's not everybody. I'm just saying. So, you'll see people with there's hormone deficiencies. You can tell signs everywhere. The guy, Dr. Hertog in Dubai, he literally walked around the room and started pointing out hormone issues with every single doctor in the crowd. It's hilarious. And, he'd see a guy with like a patchy beard. He's like, oh, low DHT. He's like, I know how to fix it. He's like, you want a full thick beard, take DHT supplement, basically Anavar, oxandrolone, a very commonly abused drug, but also a very beneficial drug, one that we prescribe constantly. So, there's reasons for all of it. But yeah, I mean, the whole dad bod thing, that's not a normal man. That's not a normal man. That is a man in a hormonal decline. That is a man with a poor diet, a poor exercise habit. And, why do those diet and exercise habits start to change as our hormone levels start to decline? We start to actually crave bad food as our optimal levels will decline. It's crazy.
So what have you been craving?
So, yeah, I mean, listen, I love my food, but, when my testosterone levels are optimal, I have absolutely no problem eating chicken, rice, and a vegetable 7 to 9 times a day, because I've been doing it since I was 13 years old. I'm used to it. I like it. And I know what it does to my body. But since I'm not training very hard, I'm still going to the gym, but my body is weak. I'm not even close to as strong. I've lost about 8 pounds of muscle, maybe 6, because I'm not eating the amount that I need to eat.
Mm-hmm. Any interesting cravings?
Fats. Actually, fats are a big one. I'm craving things like butter and like peanut butter and cookies and some sweets. Barbecue's been my thing lately. I was actually up in South Carolina. I had some barbecue on Saturday on the weekend.
Right.
And things that I normally wouldn't crave. I never really had food cravings when I was at an optimal level with my hormones.
Do you think that those hormones are having any impact on the bacteria in your gut, that the bad bacteria make you crave those things?
100%. I think, I think just like your brain chemistry, I think your gut chemistry also gets affected by a suboptimal hormone level. So, for men, once our hormones start kind of crashing down, and for women too, women, I mean, when you're looking at women that have been taking birth control, okay, oral contraceptives, which I can get into a whole conversation on that, but women are having hormonal issues because they are literally being told and taught to start taking oral contraceptives at age 13. They basically get their first menstrual cycle, and the
Well, you're gonna
doctor
get
is
better.
oh, well, oh yeah, you have cramps. Oh, there, here, take birth control.
Yep.
Let's throw some hormones or some anti-hormones into your system and screw it up. That's what they're basically doing. So, we're getting these women that are 28, 30, 35 that are not even close to premenopausal, that are having premenopausal type symptoms and premenopausal type hormone levels.
Now, when it comes to the whole autoimmune issue things, especially like is Hiroshima or Hiroshima's disease, the thyroid issue, how are, and thyroid's a hormone, how is that impacted by your levels being off?
So, I mean, your thyroid levels, there is a myriad of reasons why it can be off. Our two practitioners that are here in Orlando and Pennsylvania, and our new one that we just hired, they're going to be highly trained in the thyroid issues. With thyroid, I mean, it's Hashimoto's what you're thinking of. Yeah, so a lot of stuff for Hashimoto's. I mean, it could be environmental that can cause it. It could be something with diet and exercise. I always tell everybody basically what you're putting in is going to affect everything that you're doing. There's theories out there that say that your gut health, your bacteria will actually affect that hormone cascade coming from your thyroid. Whether that's true or not, like this, all of these hormone things are all new sciences. These are all very new realms of medical practice that most primary cares have no clue. They
Yeah, I
weren't
think
taught any of these things.
I've worked with some gut health people, and there was a group of women who were all complaining that they were becoming irritated, and the reality was that their thyroid started working and they had to cut their medications way, way back. And they're like, how did that happen with just gut health? And again, it wasn't a study, it was people that I know, and these women didn't know each other. They're in this group, and bingo, they started feeling better. And I think a lot of people don't realize that certain supplements that we could be deficient in, zinc, magnesium, even people don't understand that vitamin D is an actual hormone. How are those type of supplements impacting and helping with the sustainability or the stability of the human hormone system?
Yeah, so I mean, from a supplement side, we developed actually a whole medical grade supplement company, basically a sister company to the clinic, because we were referring people left and right to go buy supplements from Amazon and stuff like that, different companies that we knew worked, but we really didn't know the quality, really didn't know where they were coming from. So we made a supplement company ourselves. This is just one of the supplements, but I have a whole line of them. There's like almost 26, 27 products. And all of these are medical grade, only can be available to doctors' offices, have to have a medical license to even get them. And we're getting them all made from us here in the USA, CGMP, FDA compliant facility. So, I mean, we are not just going into only hormones. We're not just saying, okay, you have a testosterone deficiency, let's fix that. We're checking their vitamin D levels. We're checking B12 levels sometimes. We are offering a lot more. We want to make sure that the entire system is working. Our probiotics, digestive enzymes, and even a spore probiotic, which is kind of a new probiotic measure, kind of to like fix the gut issues. And then you're kind of transitioning from the spore probiotic to a normal probiotic to just keep your gut health. All of those things are being incorporated to make sure that they are fixing a lot of issues on top of optimizing a lot of hormones.
So the thing that I found interesting when you and I were talking over the phone, I saw you posted that you came up with a new supplement that is a nootropic, and you started taking that. So let's explain to everyone what a nootropic is and why you guys started carrying it and why you started taking it and what did it do?
So when everybody talks about nootropics, the first thing I think of is the Limitless movie.
Right.
With Bradley Cooper. It's freaking awesome. I love the movie. I wish the drug existed with none of those side effects.
Exactly.
I would love to learn Chinese in like one day and get to play with the stock market the way that he did. But nootropics, basically, there's two different types. There's like a stimulant based, and then there's kind of like a brain enhancing based. The stimulant based, everybody knows about. It's the Adderalls, it's the modafinils, things like that. Those are controlled substances. They are usually highly addictive. Adderall is one that is very highly addictive and actually give you a bunch of medical issues if you take it too much. So there's a lot of issues involved with it. What we have here, it's called dihexa. I'm not even going to attempt to actually name the chemical chain that it is, but it's a peptide base. It's called dihexa, and it is a nootropic that was developed for Alzheimer's patients.
Interesting.
So the way that it was actually created, it was created to try to mend the broken neuron connections in your brain. So all of those connections and all the brain damage. And listen, I'm not talking about brain damage from like a severe accident. You drink a little too much alcohol one night, you're killing brain cells. It's not a joke. You actually do that.
Right.
If you hit your head against the wall a little too hard, you just killed a whole bunch of brain cells.
Concussion here and there. Yep.
Yeah, they don't come back. Okay. So people think like, oh yeah, it repairs. No, you're doing irreparable damage to your brain. So what this dihexa peptide is, it's an oral capsule. It's, you don't have to inject anything in your head or anywhere else. It's an oral capsule. And the way the peptide works is it targets the neural connections in your brain. And, a lot of this is theoretical stuff. A lot of this is brand new science. It's hardly even studied and tested yet. What they have tested is they saw that there was better brain activity when people would take this. So your brain activity actually increases. So for me, as soon as I saw it, I'm like, oh, I got to try this because my brain feels like mush right now, So I'm like, all right, if I can maybe help this brain fog issue that I'm having while I'm off this testosterone therapy, maybe it'll work. And after 3 days, it was weird. I basically started being able to function much better brain-wise. I'm still physically tired. I'm not stimulated in like a caffeinated way or any kind of amphetamine way or anything like that, like a modafinil would be or like a Adderall would be. But it's more just like a normal alertness and awake feeling that I didn't have before I started taking it. The weirdest part about it, everything feels brighter. So when I started taking it, the rooms feel brighter. It's very strange.
What's interesting, because I've been doing some research on different mushrooms, and like you said, you had the spores for the probiotics, like lion's mane, there's chaga, there's different mushrooms that are coming out too that have those type of properties. And again, there is a huge issue happening now with dementia and Alzheimer's at people getting much younger getting it. Now, is that because of hormones? Is that because of heavy metal toxicity? Or is it a combination of all that and stress? But what I know right now is as my parents age, you start to see how they're maybe not as sharp. And my grandfather passed away of having Alzheimer's, my step grandmother, the same thing. And if something like this can be used for them, but how about being used as a preventative to repair the damages when you hit your head when you were a kid on the ice, or you got in a fight, or partying too much? There's a doctor called Dr. Daniel Amen, and he's a psychiatrist who started doing brain scans, and his big thing was to show people how to repair brain damage. And there were some very well-known people who thought they had it together, and he's like, you're pre-Alzheimer's. And the woman was like, you got to be kidding me. Dave Asprey, who does Bulletproof Coffee, he was another one. And they're like, what is going on here? And he's like, listen, too much caffeine in your coffee is going to cause some issues.
Yeah.
So what you're tackling is going to be the next wave of major issues coming up, because that generation, my parents, they didn't have all the crap we have in our food nowadays.
No,
they didn't
not at all.
sodas. They didn't eat sugar cereals. They didn't have access to all this stimulus that we're constantly being bombarded by with phones and computers, the internet, and so forth. And they also were outside being more physically active than ever before. I mean, you want to know where everyone is? It's the house where all the bikes are outside at. Like, that was that generation. Now what's it going to be like? What are the new things that are coming up? Why is there so much depression and anxiety in such young people nowadays? Is it hormones? Is it environment? Or is it a combination of everything? So, I mean, what you're providing at this point, I see as something that's going to grow and grow. And your approach to it is overall physical and mental wellness. And that's why we did some coaching together, and it was interesting to see like the evolution of this company and what you've done with it. And then we started and what it's gone and done so far. And in seeing that, I was quite aware of the psychological issue. And that's why I think people aren't aware of, they hold on to the personality where they weren't being optimal. They don't know how or who they are when they start feeling better. And that's where, you and I discussed doing some coaching and some hypnosis with people, because who are you now when you have this energy and when you feel better? Because all those excuses you made before and everyone who thought you were that person, you actually weren't. You were being suppressed and held back. And now that you're moving forward, feeling better, what are you capable of doing? And that self-doubt comes back, not because we don't have the tools to be better, but we don't know how to be better in a psychological way.
Yeah, I mean, the whole part of optimizing your hormones and making you feel like your younger self again, you know, people when they're 20 years old, 25, even up to 30, they behave a certain way, they act a certain way, they have a certain, liveliness to them. And then as they age, they kind of lose it, you know?
Right.
Like, oh, Johnny used to love to skateboard and go surfing and do all this stuff. And then he turned 40 and it was like, gone, you know?
Right.
So it's like, why did that happen? And then, if they're progressing and they're like that for a decade, and now their hormones are back to how he was when he was 28, how does he revert back to that old way of thinking, that old way of being, without feeling like it's a different person, without feeling like he's not being himself anymore because he's been this way for 10, 20 years?
And again, we've been there so long that sometimes we don't know what we're capable of doing. And again, what's a retirement age? What's the ability to give back? They showed, I was seeing it on, I think it was ESPN, I was at the gym, and they showed that age isn't as big of a factor in NFL football. But you've got quarterbacks. I mean, Tom Brady's been in the league how many years? 20
Mm-hmm.
something? Like, it's insane. And guess what? He's physically being pounded on game after game. How's he coming back? And I want everyone to know, pro athletes and very, very wealthy people have been doing this for years, and we just have not known about it. From stem cells for quicker recovery, for hormone balancing. They've been going to clinics all over the world. Now we have the ability to do it right here. How has COVID helped grow your business?
Yeah. So, we have access to basically everybody in the United States now. So due to COVID, we basically were able to take our practice and we were doing some telemedicine, which is basically a virtual visit, not unlike what we're doing here on Zoom,
Right.
but it's on a secure platform that's HIPAA compliant. So what happened with COVID is basically it let us kind of unleash ourselves to the world, and we were able to help people all over the country. There were certain telemedicine regulations and DEA regulations and things like that were holding back telemedicine practices.
Mm-hmm.
Those were since washed away because obviously the entire country was on a lockdown. A lot of people were not even comfortable going to see their doctors. So we were able to do these virtual consultations with people. You're in Tampa Bay right now. I'm in Orlando. You are able to be a patient here and get your blood work done in Tampa Bay. The results come to us. You have a video call with us because you don't want to drive out here. It's who wants to drive on I-4? Nobody wants to drive on I-4. I don't even like driving home on I-4.
Okay, for anyone who's not from Florida, I-4, it's about, and I'm not kidding, about 90 miles from door to door. I've done it in 2 hours and I've done it in 5 hours. It's just what day and what time.
Who feels like crashing into each other on a given day, and that's what I-4 ends up turning into. But yeah, you're able to be a patient and you're 100 miles away. We can do that all over the country. We have patients literally all over the country. We have patients that are in Puerto Rico. We have patients that are in the U.S. Virgin Islands. We weren't able to do that before. So,
are there any states you can't work with?
I'm sorry?
Are there any states you can't work with right now?
No, right now there isn't. We
Okay,
haven't had
good.
any telemedicine pushback by any states. Everybody's pretty much wide open. Those regulations can change. We all know how
Right.
laws go. We all know how regulations go. The DEA is always updating things. So, and when that happens, you basically prepare for it, and you do whatever you can. You get the licensing where you need to. You get the certifications where you need to, when you need to. In the meantime, though, but anywhere in the United States, like we can work with, we have our pharmacies. They can ship to Hawaii. They can ship to Puerto Rico. They can ship to the U.S. Virgin Islands. They can ship to all 50 states that are out here. It's great.
So if someone wanted to work with you who's watching this, what would they do?
Easiest way is to head to the website, aspirerejuvenation.com, where you can read about the clinic a little bit. You can read about us. You can read about me. I'm not your normal everyday clinic owner. My background's a little goofy. People don't believe me when I tell them what I did only 3 years ago. So, that's one way of doing it. You can submit a contact form. You can email us at info@aspirerejuvenation.com, or you can just call us at our phone number 407-233-4006.
Okay, and then they have a consultation. What does that cost?
Consultation costs absolutely nothing. So
Okay,
initial consultation is free. So we do not deal with insurance for reasons that you actually mentioned earlier in the video. Insurance companies, they will fight us on these things. We know it. Everybody else knows it. So we don't bother. But what we do is we negotiate our prices with our pharmacies directly, and we keep the prices as low as possible where it's affordable, where, it's not only the millionaires that are driving up in their Rolls Royces that come in here, which we have those, you know, it's not only them that are coming here. We have the blue collar workers coming in here. We have the people that are police officers, firefighters. We have military. We have veterans. People that are on a fixed income that are retired. They're all able to get treated here, and they're able to get treated correctly. Which unfortunately is not happening a lot of places.
yeah, because I spoke with a client and she was telling me that in her state it was $1,200 to get started, and I'm like, what? And here's the thing: people don't question doctors, and they also don't shop around because they think everyone's the same. And the reality is, as you're hearing right here now, it's not the same. It's not the same quality of the product. It's not the same standard in which care is given. A lot of doctors are seeing people who are sick, who are miserable, and
Mm-hmm.
they're on a time frame and they have quotas they have to make. And again, they're waiting for a 3 to 4 month turnaround being paid by an insurance company. Your model works exceptionally well. And I think a lot of naturopaths and holistic doctors and other clinics like yours are going to the model that you're doing with is pay as you go. The other thing that people have to understand, you're not stuck to do this for a year or a certain amount of time. What do you, like when you're first initially working with someone, what do you recommend the minimum that they work with you? And because at least you want to get their hormones to an optimal level and then balance for a period of time, and then they make a decision what they want to do. Is that correct? What would you say the
Yeah.
minimum amount of
So
time would be?
yeah. So when people start, I mean, we let's just let's stick to the testosterone therapy.
Sure.
So when I have a man come in, they have low testosterone. They're like, well, how fast am I going to feel effects? The straight, honest answer I can give them is I have no clue, because I don't know what your genetics do with this.
Right.
We have people that are 4 days in, they've had 2 shots, and they're like, I feel like I'm 22 and I'm chasing my wife or girlfriend around the house.
Right.
We have those. We have other people where they're at 8 weeks, and they're like, hey, I still don't feel anything, still don't feel anything. I'm like, okay. I'm like, well, you're coming towards the end of maybe your program. We're going to recheck blood again, and we're going to see what we need to do. And then week 8.5, they're calling me, oh, I got what you're talking about now. I figured it out. I feel it. You know what I mean? And it finally kicked in because their body acclimated. This is not something that is, sometimes very quickly manifested in these people's heads, where maybe their body is feeling great. Maybe they're not realizing that they're really starting to feel or be optimal because they're so used to being it's another way.
And
It's a
again, body fat,
lot of mental things going on there.
like what does body fat have? Like say a person is larger, they have a lot of body fat. How does that work with testosterone? Does that hinder the absorption of it? And as they lean out, it starts to work better? Or how's that? Or is there anything to that?
Yeah, I mean, the heavier you are, you're going to probably need more testosterone. So, if I have somebody come in and, we have two 6 foot tall men. One of them is relatively lean at 200 pounds. The other one is relatively heavy at 300 pounds. That 300-pound male will more likely need a higher dose of testosterone, not only to feel the effects, but also to start to cut down on that fat. Because testosterone optimization, you're gonna lose fat. You won't even have to work out. You
Right.
optimize your testosterone. You can literally do the exact same activity at a, let's say, a 200 testosterone level. If I optimize you to 800 to 1,000, you're going to literally be burning fat doing the exact same thing. That's just how it works.
Do you work with people on their eating habits or diet? Do you do any of that right now?
Yeah, so we have a couple referral services, a couple referral
Okay.
coaches that we do for diets. I do actually make diet plans myself. They're very basic. I don't do a diet program where people are checking in with me. I just don't have the time for it.
Right.
But I do one-off diets. They're relatively inexpensive, and we offer them to people all the time. And people sometimes just need a very small amount of structure to get them started, and then they can make the proper adjustments for themselves as they go on. But sticking to a relatively healthy diet for 2 months, you're going to see a drastic difference.
Right. And that's the thing I think that people need to understand too is your exercise, your eating has a huge impact on your natural levels. So by in eating perfect, I mean, we're not stepping on stage. We want to feel better and feel good, and be okay to look in the mirror. You're aging. You're not going to be perfect, but
Sure.
you're going to feel more confident. And I think that's where people start to compare themselves to all these people who are paid to look great, actors and actresses. And the reality of it is, you're going to not know what you're capable of doing until you start this. And I've watched people who they're like, oh yeah, I just want to start doing a casual, maybe a 5K race. Then they're doing a 24-hour Tough Mudder that they did 54 miles because their ability has been limited by their physical activity and their mental activity. And when they start realizing that the only thing that was slowing and holding themselves back was something that was out of their control, and now we're creating a system and a plan of action that they can actually do without feeling like, oh, I can't eat and I can't have that. I'm like, no, you can, but not every day, because that is not the type of thing that's going to help you out. But by doing this, you're going to get amazing results. And the cool thing is like when we were coaching together and you're like, oh, it's going to take this amount of time. I'm like, no, it's not. You're like, why? I'm like, watch, because we all have this calculated thing that we think it's going to take a lot longer than it does. But the reality of it is, when things start lining up, I mean, how quickly and what's your reach with people in the last 6 months been?
Yeah, it's huge. I mean, our word of mouth on our clinic. I mean, we don't do any traditional advertising. We're not doing
Right.
commercials. We're not doing magazine ads. We're not doing crazy things. I'm not spending tens of thousands on advertisements. A lot of it's word of mouth. A lot of it is just people really getting the quality service and products that we have, and they're getting from point A, to Z, feeling like $1,000,000. And as soon as you do that to somebody, they're going to tell 100 people.
Yeah.
And they're really getting the result. They're actually getting the result that they maybe didn't even know they were looking for. Maybe they didn't expect to ever have, a 32-inch waist again. But we have people that come in here that lose 60, 70 pounds, and they're like, I haven't looked this good since high school. I might not even look this good in high school.
And they didn't come for weight loss necessarily either.
No, they came because they had the low T symptoms, and it was mostly like, a lot of times for men, it's sex related.
Right.
That's men are sexually driven. We know that. We get it. So
They don't want to take that blue pill.
yeah, they want to take a pill that increase vascular function when it's not even a vascular issue. Viagra and Cialis are for vascular issues. Nothing wrong with them. They work amazingly. We prescribe a lot of them for people that have an issue with vascularity, type ED. But when it comes to the way that you think up here, your mental clarity, your mental sexuality, your confidence, a lot of that has to do with your sexual function as well. So the mental part of it is huge. You optimize somebody's testosterone, they're going to look better, they're going to feel better, and they're going to want to have more sex. That's just kind of how it goes. That's the same thing with women. Women on testosterone, low dose testosterone therapy for women. I have guys that bring their wives in after they start testosterone. Their wives get optimized. Then the guys are coming back to me and they need something stronger because they can't keep up with the woman. It's amazing. I
And
love hearing
again,
these.
women go, so a lot of people don't realize, yes, women go through menopause and men go through the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the
So
crazy
yeah, the
part is,
andropause and menopause,
oh
very
yeah,
similar.
the thing that I just popped in my mind is when someone loses 70 pounds, yes, there's physical changes, like they probably come off a lot of medications that they don't need, from high blood pressure to, type 2 diabetes.
Mm-hmm.
But what has that just done for their whole way of life? Just not being uncomfortable or being on a breathing machine that they don't need to be on anymore. Like, do you hear from other of their normal physicians asking you what really changed for them? Do you ever hear from their regular doctors ever?
No, sometimes we have the patients come to us
Okay.
because even after it's crazy to me, but even after we have all of this success with patients, you'll still have doctors that will be like, testosterone, that can cause prostate cancer. And the
Oh,
first
that
thing,
has been debunked, which thank God, because they ruined so many guys with destroying their testosterone by chemically castrating them because of
it's
prostate cancer. It's insane.
there's still doctors that are saying this. There's still doctors saying, don't take testosterone because you're going to get prostate cancer. And I'm looking at the guy and I'm like, that's not how that works.
Right. And the other thing is heart issues. Take testosterone to cause heart issues. I'm going to tell people right now, taking testosterone the right levels actually improves your heart.
Correct. Another part of that testosterone level that this is still kind of like a little out there because everybody's all about anti-estrogens with testosterone.
Right.
Now, for those of you that don't know, anti-estrogens are used to make sure estrogen levels don't climb too much. Okay, that's what the theory is. I have met the doctors that actually brought this theory to life, and they did it because of bodybuilding. One of the perpetrators of this anti-estrogen type of craze was Dr. Neil Rousier, who actually taught the course I just graduated from. And he started doing it for these bodybuilders back in the 60s and 70s to prescribe it because they were using it for certain reasons for bodybuilding. Okay.
Right.
So what people don't realize is estradiol. There are 3 different types of estrogen in your bodies. Actually, I think there's 4, but the main ones: estradiol, estrone, and estriol. Estriol, don't worry about it. Estradiol, super healthy. Estrone, nasty storage estrogen that causes things like gynecomastia, acne, the oily skin, and bloating. That's estrone, not estrogen.
Okay.
Estrone. Estradiol is actually extremely cardioprotective to men and women. So for a man, you jack the testosterone level up to 1,000. Okay, so now you're at 1,000 testosterone level. If you're still looking at that number range for a normal estradiol level for a man between 20 and 50, you're missing the boat. Don't try to get in there. Your testosterone level is now way up here. Your estradiol has to balance with it. So people start freaking out and they see their estradiol level at 100. And the first thing I ask them, are you having any symptoms? Well, no. I said, okay, good. Don't take your anti-estrogen. If you start to feel nipple sensitivity, if you start to have some major bloating, some major acne, that's when we need to start looking at your estrone levels, which we carry a supplement stack over the counter that combats it. Actually proven to reduce your estrone. We have labs to prove it. It's amazing.
That's the interesting thing, because a lot of people don't have the time and the energy or the effort to research all that. And that's why I send them to you.
Mhm.
Yeah, I know all this stuff. I've been around all kinds of different things, but I'm not an expert. And I know that. I know where my strengths are. I know where my weaknesses are. And even though I could do it, why do it? And sending them to your clinic, people are getting results. They're feeling better about what they're doing. And by me working with them on the coaching side and the hypnosis, we're getting major improvements. So I think the compliment has been drastic for a lot of people, helping them out. And at the same time, that to me is going to be the biggest shift that people are going to get into, is how to optimize their mental health and their physical health, and how foods and having a fun time instead of just grinding and hustling and pounding a pot of coffee and trying to get through it. Because at the end of the day, if you don't have health, you don't have anything.
Yeah, yeah. The whole sleeping 4 hours a day to hustle and
Oh,
grind and do all this. That's something that happened in the 1980s, when stock markets went crazy and people were doing way too much cocaine. Let's be
sure
honest.
was.
That's
Sure.
what
I
they
mean,
did. They slept 4 hours. They
Wolf
worked.
of
They took a
Wall Street. I mean, come
Wolf of
on.
Wall Street. That was a real thing. I don't know how real the actual movie was to his real life, but it was probably pretty close. Dude was nuts. I watch his podcast all the time. But now all these guys, all these big influencers, guys like Gary Vee and guys like oh God, the guy who runs Valuetainment, Patrick Bet David, guys like that, they're telling all these people, sleep, improve your hormones, improve your health, diet, exercise. You know,
Exactly.
they're not saying they're sleeping 4 hours a day and grinding and hustling and blah blah blah, all these key tag words, these hashtags that everybody likes to use. No, they're getting 8 hours of sleep, and they're getting optimal sleep because their brain activity is going to work that way. They're optimizing their hormones, and they're taking things like cool nootropics because that's what's making them function during the rest of the time they're awake, you
And they're
know
not burning out. They're not getting overwhelmed. They're not having anxiety. And that's the big thing that
and they're not aging. They're not
exactly.
they're not aging. They're not getting old. They look great. They're staying thin. They're staying active. You see them playing with their kids. You see them succeeding. You take a man with low testosterone with $1 million business, that $1 million business will not exist in 5 years if he stays like that.
He's sitting
Not
on
the
the
way that
couch,
he, not the way
having
that
a
he sees
drink,
it.
trying to unwind. Give me some time. Let me have a couple drinks. I'm like, why are you drinking? I'm like, I don't have a problem with someone having a drink. I talked to a guy the other day that I'm working with. He's in his 20s. He's like, yeah, 4 or 5 bourbons. I'm like, what? Like, what?
Yeah, it's a
And
lot.
I'm like, no. So he's going through his detox program right now with me that I put together. He's like, man, I feel awesome. He's like, what is this for? I said, to clean out and balance out your whole body so that you can absorb nutrients correctly from your digestive tract. I said, I don't care how healthy you eat. If your intestinal system, your whole digestive system is not working correctly, you're not getting nutrients.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people do one thing and they do another thing. They're like, why am I getting the great results? And what we're talking about is doing all this at once
Yeah.
and enjoying
Yeah.
a healthy, happy life where you can go out and have a cigar or a drink with your friends and feel okay about it, but you're not having to have the drink. You're not having to do the recreational drugs every day to feel better, to disconnect. Because that's what this world, if you've seen the last year, is a ton of disconnection. And what we have been seeing is it's time to come back together and realize that we can all help each other out if we're
Mhm.
able to listen, not just to hear. And whoever's watching this, I hope you got something out of it. I wanted to bring Tomo on here and do it this way because I've been through what he's going through, and there is a means to the end, and it's an amazing process to be able to have a child like I have. My daughter's 10. They told me, like I said, 0% chance. And when I told my parents, hey, you're going to be a grandparent again, they're like, did you get a new puppy? I mean, you got some new puppies. But, and that's the sad thing. Now that I look back, it's a little comical, but it's sad that that's what the expectation was. And I realized that if I would have listened to the quote experts back then, I wouldn't have my daughter. I wouldn't be in a relationship. I wouldn't have the business I have. I wouldn't have the friends I have because they were all about limiting.
Yeah.
And I want
The
people to
world is
realize
very
that
limiting to everybody.
the only thing that limits us is ourselves. And by doing exactly what we both do and putting it together, we're giving people the opportunity to be more than they've ever been before in their life.
Yeah. Well, I mean, listen, I didn't want to do this video. I said that from the beginning. Said that right at the beginning when we started this video. I didn't want to do this video because for me to sit down and talk about all this without some interaction, I would have been, I'm brain fogged. I would have been brain
Right?
dead talking about this. So if I didn't have somebody leading me, to answer these questions, somebody that actually has been through what I'm going through right now, none of this would have got out. And I think this is going to be very beneficial for people. So again, if you guys are watching, if any of this relates to you and we can help you, whether it's Shawn from what he does, or whether it's me from the Aspire Rejuvenation side, the supplements, the hormones, anything, guys, we can be more than happy to help you really optimize anything that you need to in your life. And you don't have to live in a suboptimal way. We're
Right.
not just talking about health, we're talking about mentally too.
Right. And we're going to be doing work together, and and people will see that when it comes out, when it's ready. And it's going to be a life-changing system that we're putting together for people. And the reason we're doing it is because it needs to be done.
Yeah. Where can people find you, Shawn?
So they can go on Facebook. My website is ShawnAHuber.com. On Facebook, it's Shawn Huber. Our company is called Structured Freedom. There's a reason I named it that, because without structure in your life, you're not going to ever have the freedom you want. And I work on the mind and the body. My wife works on the business. I'm also getting into consulting, because coaching is asking a lot of questions. Consulting is, here's the program, follow it, here's the result. Consulting is the next thing. I keep challenging myself, like you keep challenging yourself. And we're stepping outside of areas we ever thought. I mean, 3 years ago, would you ever thought that this was possible?
3 years ago, I was pushing a patrol car. For anybody that doesn't know, I was a cop for 12 years. I was pushing a patrol car, making very little money, as you know, cops make, working midnight shift, and it sucked.
So in the last 6 months, and people may not know this, and I think I'm okay to share this. We first started working together, you weren't engaged, you weren't married, and your business had yourself and 2 other people, right? That's it?
Yeah, we were trimming that line that was very close to staying open.
And where is it at? How many employees now?
We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We have 6 in this office alone. And then we have a Pennsylvania office, and then I have an employee for the supplement side. And we have opportunities to open up a Las Vegas clinic, a Atlanta clinic, and a North Florida and a South Florida clinic. All all daunting tasks, but it can be very fun.
And that's the amazing part about all this. In 6 months, all that has happened. You're married, you got engaged, you got married, and it happened during COVID. All of it. And how's the next project, the house? How's that going?
Oh, we sold our house and we bought a new house.
You didn't get that house?
Yeah. So
congratulations, man.
Yeah. So this is the official outing. We're just waiting on the closing. We close in 3 weeks.
Awesome, because I knew I was up at the clinic.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
So for everyone who doesn't know, Florida real estate goes really fast right now, and you put an offer on a house you didn't even see and had to go see it that day.
Yeah. So that happened. I mean, we lost several houses before we found the one that we really wanted. We got a beautiful house. We got it for a good deal, which is hard to find right now. The housing market is absolutely insane. But yeah, we lucked out. We were extremely happy that we got to do this. We're closer to the office. We're where we want to be. School districts, of course, are great because we're trying to make babies. So we want to have a good school district.
Hey, thanks everyone for watching.
Yeah, thank you guys. I appreciate you, Shawn. Thank you for helping me interview.
Yeah, definitely,
man.
And
yeah, I hope everybody gets everything from this. Feel free to reach out to us. You have his contact info. You have my contact info. I'll put it below the video. Thank you all for watching. Please give us a like and subscribe if you guys like this video. Share it with your friends. Let's get some of this information out there. We appreciate your guys' support. Give us a call if you need us. Come and visit us on AspireRejuvenation.com or AspireSups.com for all your supplement needs.